thing I'm very proud of the last 15 years of how many people we've introduced to this amazing place. You know, and we have, I've talked about it, we had 40, 50 players who are here year round, but we have a further 350, 400 families that come here to visit us and do a week or 2 weeks to access the area as well. But I think I differentiate mental strength to mental health. So in terms of certainly my belief on mental strength is it's our ability to commit to something helpful no matter how we feel. You know, there's in-match routines, there's pre-match routines, there's training day routines, you know, people that have good, strong habits. So there's many families that have relocated here. Certainly since COVID times, which I think we've obviously seen in Sotogrande as well. The remote working space is so much more alive now, so why wouldn't you live in a beautiful place like this?
Welcome to Charlie in Sotogrande, the podcast where I explore the people, the passions and the places that drive this beautiful community that Sotogrande is. Today's guest has turned Sotogrande into a hub of high-performance tennis. Dan Kiernan, director and co-founder of SotoTennis Academy, has created a world-class environment where young athletes not only sharpen their game but also grow as individuals. We'll explore his journey and the Academy's growth, the balance of tennis and education, and why Sotogrande is the perfect base for future champions. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm very impressed with this whole setup. I'm actually a bit jealous as well, but thank you for having me.
No, well, these boys can help you out, you know. They can do anything they want. It's not real estate, but they can do it themselves. Dan, for those who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself to anyone that doesn't know who you are?
I guess firstly, my wife's listening, so a husband.
Okay.
A father of 3.
Right.
You know, those are the main drivers in my life, you know, so that's the starting point. The director of SotoTennis Academy, you know, that's been over 15 years now, you know, I do lots of different things now, but that's very much my kind of stable, that's the platform for everything. A coach of some of the best doubles players in the world. Is something that I've done the last 3 years, so that's kind of become part of my identity. And then actually a host of a podcast for the last 5 or 6 years. Again, that's become part of who I am as well, and they all blend together quite nicely in a chaotic balance of something. I don't know quite what it is, but
in this wonderful place of Sotogrande as well.
In this incredible place that's very much home for me, you know, over 15 years now, you know, so this is very, very much home. The longest I've ever lived anywhere. Right. So I left the northeast of England when I was 14. Right. So I've now passed that. I've passed that mark. So this is the place I've lived in the longest as well.
No, I mean, the podcast is all about the community and people are here and what it offers. So having you on is a must, because I've heard of this sort of tennis. As I say, I'm not a tennis player, but I've seen it grow and grow and grow. When I played paddle, I knew Ian down at Octógono very well, and you know, so it's something we wanted to make sure. Were you a professional tennis player yourself? Did you?
Once upon a time. Once upon a time. So yeah, I did. So I guess my tennis journey, the playing bit, you know, I left home at 14. To go to the National Tennis School, which at the time in the UK that was at Bisham Abbey. Okay. So from a northeastern boy to go all the way down to Bisham Abbey down south was a big move. Then I went to US college at 18 on a scholarship, and then after that I played on the professional tour for about 3 years. All right. And I wasn't one of those people you see on TV. I just kind of fell short of that. I did play Wimbledon a couple of times, and in my highest, I guess, what I was known for, certainly in the UK, I got a British No.1 doubles player. Okay. And Tim Henman was number 2. Okay. At the time. Now, I had played about 25 tournaments towards that ranking, and maybe he'd only played 2. However, I've got the cuttings of the magazine. Daniel Kiernan 1 and Tim Henman 2. So, and then it was just tennis as a sport that it costs a lot of money to do it. You know, when you're traveling the professional tour, it's not like you're picked for a team and you now receive X amount of money. It's you have to find a way of self-funding it. And I was kind of sick of getting in more and more debt.
It's like the golfers. I mean,
Yes.
the golfers,
Very
I know,
similar.
they start the year in a negative because they have they've planned their hotels and their trips and the caddy
Absolutely.
and everything else. And if they don't start winning money very quickly, they're in the red, very, very fast.
Yeah, these individual sports, and actually I think what individual sports do that, and that's a big part of what we do at SotoTennis Academy now, is getting people to understand actually the transferable skills that you're learning. I often joke, if you play football with Lionel Messi on your team, you can probably just hide for 85 minutes and pass him the ball.
Yeah.
But when you're playing sports like golf and tennis, you're out there
There's
on
nowhere
your
to go.
own, and it's tennis in particular is very gladiatorial as well. People don't quite realize that it's kind of me and you, nobody else, and somebody's coming out alive, and someone's not. So those skills that you're picking up all the way through really do lead into giving you a bit of an upper hand in the next phase of life. But we don't always educate that well enough, which is what I try to do through the academy.
So is there a gap between you stopping playing and coming to Sotogrande? Because 15 years here, sort of 15 years school, then tennis.
Yes, no, there was. So I, as often is the case, love gets a bit of a tennis term as well, but love's kind of pulls us in a certain place. So Vicky, my now wife and co-director of the academy, she was living in Birmingham. So when I was still playing on the professional tour, I was starting to edge towards spending more time there. So then when I stopped, that became home for me for 5 or 6 years. I worked at the Edgbaston Priory Tennis Club, which is a beautiful tennis club in Birmingham. Had a fantastic life there. We enjoyed life, and I enjoyed my job. My wife was working for the biggest radio station in Birmingham, and we just felt that we were that stage of our life where we either do something or we don't. And my wife's sister was living out here at the time. We spent a little bit of time here, started to really kind of fall in love with the area, and that kind of went hand in hand with this vision I had of, do you know what, a warmer weather place to produce tennis players seems like something that could happen. So that's how those two worlds collided, really.
That was why my next question was, how did you and Vicky choose Sotogrande? So you just visited and
Yeah, we were here for Vicky's 30th birthday actually, and we had a lot of friends here. We were staying with Vicky's sister on Paseo del Parque, so there's worse places to be spending a holiday, and just conversations that we ended up having with a couple of people at that time that then got really interested in the vision. So we then spent 12 months looking up and down the coast on how we were going to bring that alive. And started to bring business plans together, started to bring that vision a little bit clearer, and I just kept coming back to Sotogrande. I visited all the clubs in Estepona, all the clubs in Marbella, all the clubs up and down the coast, but just something kept attracting me to Sotogrande, and in particular actually the Octógono Tennis Club, where Ian McDougall, who's done an amazing job with that club for so long, it's a very beautiful tennis club, a little hidden gem. And at that time was quite quiet, and I saw the real potential in that, but also saw the potential in the area, almost a little safe haven for players to come, almost like our own little campus. I kind of had the vision of them riding their bikes. I didn't have the vision of the scooters at that stage back in 2010.
Wow,
but the scooters have taken over. But that was, Sotogrande just kept bringing my eye back. And then Ian, as amazing as Ian is, he was a bit of a hard taskmaster at first to kind of break him down into persuading him that we could add a lot of value to his tennis club as well, and how we could be complementary together. And I think 15 and a half years later, I think we can both be very proud that we've made that happen, really. As part of, I guess, that almost going back to who we are, it was always around team environment, individual pathway. We started with quite small numbers. And I guess the victim of the success of the academy, it was a little bit that we actually grew a little bit too much, which then became quite difficult to handle. So at times we've had up to 45, 50 students that we look after in what we would call a more full-time manner. That's not someone who's coming and playing tennis once a week. That's people that are playing 7, 8, 9 times, playing competitions, going out there trying to have international rankings. And we've actually reduced that back down now to, we've got 24 players that we look after during the day, and then a further 12 after school as well. So it's very much aimed at the competition level player.
So what age groups are they? Because you said school, so there must be at school as well. And I gather you have something with international school.
We do, yeah. So yeah, the ages will vary, I guess, all the way from. I mean, you'd be amazed at some of these 7 and 8 year olds how good they are.
Yeah.
So we do actually have a group of 7 or 8 year olds, 3 or 4 of them, that are very much on a journey. Whatever that journey is, this is not
about... Is it their journey or the parents' journey?
It's theirs, I think. I mean, look, you have a lot of... I'm a tennis parent as well. My son plays, and it's hard to get that right balance for sure, but quite quickly when it's the parents, because it's difficult for a kid to show up every single day, go to school, show up, right attitude, want to do it. You can't fake that, so that's something we're very aware of. That's very much part of our educational process that we will also do with the parents. So I would say more often than not it is the players. However, we do have some red flags, of course, and I'd like to think myself and the team, one thing we pride ourselves is on those honest conversations, that will challenge that.
Of the 24 plus 12, just the 12 are at school, or the 24?
So the 20, no, because what we have set up with the international school is, and this was a program alongside Jason Floyd's Golf Academy that we set up about 10 years ago now with the school, is that the 14 to 16 year olds, they can come out of school at 1:30. So they change their syllabus around so that the elective subjects were in the afternoon. So they do all of their core subjects, and then they come to us at 1:30 during the day. And then the 16 to 18 year olds that do the A-level program with the school, they go to school at 3 o'clock. Right. So you'll and then there's a trend towards international tennis players. There's definitely a trend towards online schooling. So you will have some players that are doing the online schooling programs as well. But every single person is absolutely in education. Every single person, we want to get them to the age of 18 where they have options. They have options to either go the tennis route or the option to go and do a college route, whether that's in America, combining their tennis and their education, which is where probably a large percentage of our students do go. And that's then very much a clear pathway into the professional game as well.
And that's mostly to the US or the UK as well?
It is. I mean, you'll have some go to the UK. We will have some go to Barcelona or somewhere in Europe. The reality is, so if we take, sorry to give the tennis terminology, but if we take the 4 Grand Slams, the Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon and US Open, over the last 2 or 3 years in the men's singles event, you've had about 21 to 24 of the players in the event out of the 128 have gone the US college route. Right. In the doubles, you're talking about 45 to 48 of the 128 players in the doubles. Right. On the women's, the percentages are a little bit lower, but they are again trending upwards. Yeah. So US college is the only legit professional pathway. Right. And when we talk about, I guess, the way that a mind develops, an emotions develop, a body develops, how many people outside of your Carlos Alcaraz, Yannick Sinner are at the age of 18 or 19 and ready to really compete on the international stage? Not so many. Yeah. Now the challenge tennis has is it's a relatively short career. So when we're talking with the golfers, and we've done a lot of things alongside the golf, where there's not been a great synergy as golfers play till their 50s and even 60s.
More and more, yeah.
Even on the pro tour. So there's not as much of a race at those ages with the parents, whereas we find in tennis, there's a hustle and bustle. The average amount of time on the tour is 6 or 7 years. So you can really feel it from the parents. It's like they're fighting to try and get that spot. Whereas unless you are very, very, very special and a generational talent, I like the US college system for that. There is the odd one that can go through the UK system and still come through. It depends how they're looking at it. Some might want to be a doctor, and then they might go to a UK university where education comes before their sport, which is also completely fine. But it's the secret is to find out what the purpose is and have those.
There's been, particularly the women, I think, a lot of Eastern European women. Are they going the college route as well? Because suddenly we see them interviewed, they all have an American accent.
Yeah, well, the US college route for females, I would say, up until the last 5 years, wasn't necessarily the main route to getting to the top of the game. And in my opinion here, a 17-year-old girl, a 16-year-old girl can compete physically with a 26-year-old woman. 16-year-old boy can't really compete with a 26-year-old man, the way that they physically develop. I also from an emotional standpoint, and anyone that's a parent out there will probably say the same. If they've got a 15, 16-year-old boy, they're not ready. They're not
still doing stupid things.
Whereas a 16-year-old girl can have a very mature emotional mind already. So I think naturally there is this way that the girls mature a little bit earlier to compete.
So let's get back to Sotogrande. What does a typical day look like for one of these kids?
So I guess if I give an example of someone who, I'll give two examples. I'll give an example of someone who goes to school. Let's say in the elite program with the international school, they would come down for 7:30 a.m. and be at the courts for 7:30 a.m. Where they go through a warm up with our fitness coaches. Not just a warm up, but also they'll do some speed work. They'll start the day right. Then they'll play tennis 8 till 9:30 as an example. And then they would then do a physical training session, which would be in the gym. Our gym is actually in the new Plaza Blanca. We've got an area there that has our office and a little gym area there as well.
Oh, around the back here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll go there and they'll do whatever their program is, very personalized, have some time, a bit of food. And then some of them would then either go and do their schooling at that point, or if they are at the school, they would likely then play tennis again before going off to school at about 3 p.m. The ones that are doing their own schooling would probably have a 3-4 hour window there to get the majority of their schooling done. Time for them to rest, recoup, ready to go again. Then they would do a second tennis session, followed by then stretching, taking care of their bodies, constantly fueling, constantly fueling. And then we try and get those players to finish at about 4:30. So that then enables a couple of things. One, for them to rest, but also two, pick back up with schoolwork, and also just from a mental freshness standpoint. Those that go to full day of school, it does become a challenge, because tennis is a sport where if you want to play it to a high level, you want to get your numbers and your volume and your hours in. It's a very complex sport, tennis. So there's so many details that you've got to do, and if you don't quite get the hours, it's hard to get the right reps in. So they would come to us for 4:30, and they would have a tennis session followed by a fitness session. And then sometimes they would have private training where they're working on some specifics in their game.
So they could be there to 8 o'clock at night?
Could easily 8 o'clock, 8:30. And then I know this because it happened with my son. You then get them home for 8:30, shower, food's on the go, and then he lands you with, I've got homework in French, Spanish, and so it is quite intense, which is why certainly for me, and this was the idea that I had with the international school all of those years ago, something has to give. There has to be a compromise somewhere. And it's absolutely not me saying stop education or stop tennis, but it's about having a program that enables both. But you kind of need to pick a number one and a number two. And if your number one is education, then I call it the 2012 rule. I made that up in 2012, but it's probably about 20 5-15 rule, let's say, where they would do 25 hours of education and 15 hours of their sport.
Right.
If you pick the sport over the education, you do the 25 hours of your sport and the 15 hours of the education. And it's all for me about getting to the stage where they have options at 18.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously from there, that's what I love about US colleges. You don't then have to choose either. It's still, I'm going to go and get a degree.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to also do my sport to a high level. And I just don't, and I haven't seen anybody fail who's committed to going through that route.
Okay.
You know, if you really want to do it and you put your unconditional effort into it on a daily basis, you always find yourself, and people that are tennis players and do it to a committed way, they always end up being someone who's very employable, someone who can run their own business. You had Jack Brady on, I believe, a few weeks ago.
Right.
You know, Jack was one of our students.
Yeah.
You know, I see what he's doing and how he's putting those skills to use. You know, and this is, you know, we're very proud of all of those stories. And I could stand here all day and tell you about all of those success stories in life after tennis.
Sure.
You know, tennis is the vehicle, but it's not the end.
I think a kid that is prepared to put those hours in, that's prepared to put the physical thing, and has the brain anyway. You know? Yeah. I mean, you look at all the top guys. I mean, when I look at Nadal, he's making more money off the court now. You know, talk about Federer, talk about, you know, they're all done it. I mean, now and again you get an exception, but they've all done well, because you need the brain as well as the brawn, so to speak, to be able to do it. You know, otherwise it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To be competitive, they have to get into tournaments. So when you're living here in Sotogrande, how far afield do they go for tournaments? Do you have to travel far, or can you get them all done in Spain, Portugal? Or?
Yeah, well, look, we're in tournament heaven here. Mm-hmm. So within Andalusia, there's 360 tournaments a year for junior tennis players. So basically 7 a week. So in terms of what we provide as an academy, we go to probably 40-45 weekends a year we're at tournaments. Mm-hmm. So it's basically a constant. You know, we have a rota of who's taking. You'll see the vans going around Sotogrande, and what we're often doing, if they're not going to the gym or the supermarket, they're off to a tournament, you know, and competing, and the level's very high. There's then a crazy amount of national level tournaments as well, about 80, and we go to lots of them, and they tend to bring the national level tournaments at the start and end of the season. So like Seville, Marbella, Estepona, you'll often have tournaments here in February, March, September, October, and then during that middle part of the year, they go up the country a little bit, you know, and that's obviously weather related. Yeah. The weather's the best here during those months. And then we also, we as an academy, we support probably 50, 60 international tournaments a year. Mm-hmm. So we've got a group in Angola this week. You know, we've got people, you name it, we're there, you know, because that's the international junior circuit kind of mirrors the professional circuit. So to get out there it's not ever about getting the points. That's a byproduct. You get out there and you're working on getting better at your game and having these experiences. They're then setting you up for what's to come a little bit later. So the education they're getting, being in Angola, you know, I'm a massive believer in education is travel. You know, you're traveling and you're doing these things and you're having different challenges and dealing with different people and seeing different cultures and understanding how different people work. So it really is a very holistic outlook that we've got. And, you know, some tennis academies in the world have got the strap line, come and be champions here. You know, we're not saying, you know, we have had lots of champions, and we've had Grand Slam champions, and we've had #1 teams in the world. Right. However, that's not the main focus. The main focus is providing these environments and these opportunities, and then from there, people will thrive. You know, in different ways. Yeah.
We talked about them, people going to colleges and that sort of thing. How do you identify that a person can be a tennis player to a high level? Not a champion, but you know, you know, it's there's a natural thing, you know. But I remember being at school, and some kids were good at football, others were good at cricket, others were good at rugby. There's maybe size, might be you can run faster, you're a bit boxing, a bit bigger, whatever it is. Is a tennis player have something specific, or is it? Because I look at Wimbledon, and I see them all different shapes and sizes. You know, it's all. It's probably between the ears, the real thing.
Yeah, well, again, the question, I would answer that question differently depending on the age that I'm viewing or observing. It's probably a better way of putting it. In my previous role back in Birmingham in England, I was a talent ID coordinator, whatever that nonsense means. But it meant that I was actually going to quite a few schools and looking at 5, 6, 7-year-olds, and and I guess the first thing I'm always looking at is enthusiasm. Yeah. If someone's enthused by the sport, motivated, there's a chance, right? Of course, you're then looking at athletic ability, you're looking at coordination, you're looking at, believe it or not, and this is a big one for me, it's difficult to do in a kind of objective way, but I'm looking at parents, and what I'm looking for is, are the parents committed? Do the parents look like they're going to be a bit of a problem here? Do they look like they're in for the journey? Because without the parents, forget it, right? You've heard all the countries I'm talking about. The level of commitment in this sport is massive. At this age, we're not, at what we do here at SotoTennis Academy, we're not really taking kids at that age. I would love to, but we've never quite had the facility to be able to do it. If Ollie McDougall's listening to this, I do think me and Ollie still should do it together at the club, but that's another topic. But in terms of looking, and I'll share one example. A good friend of mine, he won I always say won. He paid in an auction for a train at Soto Tennis for a week. It was one of these. I think it was maybe Jojo who does amazing things for the community. The fitness trainer. She had an auction. We gave a day, and his son came at age 13, and he'd played tennis about 4 times, and he came to have this day. And at the end of the day, I was like, I like this kid. He can't play tennis yet, but I really like this kid. Like, you can tell he's played a lot of sport. He's got good hand-eye coordination. He's loving it. He's just so enthusiastic. He's telling me that tennis is the sport he wants to do, and I was asked the question, would we let him into the academy? Now, where that question comes, and this is not a snobby answer, so please don't take it that way. If you take the wrong people into the academy, you have a problem, because nobody's happy. And
it's a rotten apple. I mean, it's in fact,
but also if you, even in terms of with level, because if I'm with you every day, your level needs to match my level, because we're playing together. Tennis is a sport like golf. I could go on the driving range next to Tiger Woods. It doesn't matter. Hopefully he doesn't watch my swing, but other than that, I'm not going to impact him. Whereas in tennis, it's a back and forth game. So if you end up with the wrong kids in the wrong groups, they're not happy because they're out their depth. The players that are playing with them aren't happy because they're playing
the
with
ball's not coming back.
Ball's not coming back with the quality that you need. So you do have to really get that right. Now, with this young man, we took a chance on him, but we also said to him, you're going to have to play with younger players. You're going to have to do a lot of kind of hitting with coaches to get your level up. And that was about 4 years ago. I actually, after this, because he's off to America on a scholarship in 2 weeks' time. And we're actually, it's funny timing, because they've invited us for a barbecue to say thank you, and this evening. So with the right person, you can achieve a lot in a short space of time. But tennis is a sending and receiving sport. So he'd played basketball a lot, he'd played football, he'd done a lot of other sports. So these things are actually training for that if you're when you actually take it that way. But if you get the wrong person and you get someone who, I go back to it, that word enthusiasm, doesn't have the enthusiasm.
They wouldn't have turned up on the prize thing anyway.
Exactly. Exactly.
It wouldn't have gone. Talking about fitness and everything else, tennis today is about being physical conditioning. It's always been, but used to be a lot less, but now you've got sports science, you have fitness, you have nutrition. Is that part of the whole thing? I mean, you mentioned gym work and everything else. What is it? Is it this mobility thing that we talk about too much now, not stretching? Is it about weights? Is it about putting on beef because you have to? But I mean, you're running. How many calories does a tennis player?
It's thousands. Yeah, it's thousands. Yeah, I mean, tennis. Like, I'm biased, right? And people will disagree with this, but I honestly believe it's the toughest sport in the world. And the reason I believe it's the toughest sport in the world is, from a physical standpoint, you have to. It's a non-negotiable that you're quick.
Yeah.
It's a non-negotiable that you have the stamina to be able to run at fast speeds on and off for 3 hours plus in hot weather, in humid weather, in difficult conditions. And then you win that match on that day, then you go again the next day. Mm-hmm. There's none of this. People say boxing to me, and I wouldn't want to be a boxer, but you have 2 fights a year.
Yeah.
Like this is the tennis players are playing 100 matches a year. You have to have incredible flexibility to get in the positions that you need to get in, agility. You have to be robust so you're not getting injured. That's the number one of our physical team that we have in place. Like, do we have a robust body that is on the court? So we do all of those things, and that could be the sport, because you'll get Olympians who, and I'll never forget this either, and it's not taking anything away, but I think it was Catherine Granger comes to mind. She won a gold medal on the bike in the 2008 Olympics or 2012. She'd never been in a boat, and 4 years later she won a gold medal in rowing. Mm-hmm. And I fully tip my hat, amazing respect. However, not possible in a sport like tennis. Mm. And the missing link is the reason why I still beat a lot of our players, because I don't have the physical, but I've got the skill.
Yeah.
So you not only do you need to have that physical and way about it, but you've then got to have quite an extreme level of skill to be able to do certain things as well. And there just isn't many sports out there that have that combination of physicality and skill to a high level. There's skill sports that maybe the physicality doesn't quite need to be there. And sorry, golfers, I know it's becoming a more physical sport now, but that would be one.
Absolutely.
Golf.
You can play till you drop dead.
Miguel Jimenez and John Daly and these guys. I know that the McIlroy and people like that have now got themselves in much better shape, but tennis, you do need the skill, and then you also then have this gladiatorial thing that boxing. I know you're not punching each other, but from a mentality standpoint, it's like I said earlier, it's me and you. It's you, yeah. Nobody else, just us, and somebody comes out the cage alive. That's that kind of mental fortitude is also there as well. So taking all of that into account, tennis, I forgot the question actually. I've just gone on a tangent.
just talking about the physicality and the gym work you have to do.
Absolutely. So in terms of that, of course, that's we have 4 physical trainers at the academy. Yeah. We work with sports psychologists, we work with physios, and a big shout out to Jorge Espada, who we've worked with for 12-15 years now, who does an incredible job with the team.
I might have to go and see him later in the week, because I'm having a meniscus taken out on Wednesday.
Right, okay. Well, he'll sort you out. Jorge's looked after us, and then the same on the nutritional side. So we've got, there's the options there. There's lots of education happens, but then there's the option to then bring that in with different players. So it's a full holistic thing. And one of my big sayings, or one of our big values at the academy, we call it paying your daily bill. Mm-hmm. And it's like anything, nothing comes for free in life, and you have to pay that bill, and each player will have what their bill is. That might be morning gratitude, that might be doing an extra 10 minutes on shoulder stability, that might be doing an extra 10 minutes working on their serve, but there's all of these little extra bits that are absolutely in place. It's not just the program, it's also having these surrounding pieces that go with it as well.
Are you doing that because of mental health application? Because mental health is this big thing that people talk about, mostly recently. And I've always felt that if you have to do that little bit of extra, do that little bit of, almost voluntarily sometimes, you are on top of yourself, and it's you driving yourself rather than the world coming on top of you. And that's when things start affecting people in their mental health, I believe. Now, I'm no expert in this. It's just the way that you read and see and things. But someone who's motivated, someone who's thinking about doing that extra bit. And I see that my sport was rugby. I mean, I was a lunatic rugby player, but I played in South America where I was brought up. I think I played under 13s against Argentina, Chile, and that sort of thing. Went on. I played for Kent in the level, and I went to British universities. Got into I didn't get on, but I was thereabouts. Relatively good level. I mean, it was amateur, and I probably would have wanted to be professional if I'd been 25 years younger. So I understand the thing about sport and how you get motivated, and there was always that guy that did the extra bit in the gym. He wanted to do another session, or he wanted to do another rep, or wanted to put another couple on, and he'd try. And they were the ones that made it, because you can see that on the field. And that, I think, is all to do with anybody that does a sport has that mental health. I don't know where it's you have a halo around you where you're although
I would I think I'd differentiate mental strength to mental health, actually. I think
true.
So in terms of, certainly my belief on mental strength is it's our ability to commit to something helpful no matter how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
So we will work a lot on these routines, a lot on, there's in-match routines, there's pre-match routines, there's training day routines, people that have good, strong habits. The ability to commit to that shows you've got a strong mind, and then that almost helps you be a little bit more bulletproof in the key moments, because actually I can handle this, but it doesn't mean it's any less painful, or that you're not in discomfort when you're competing, which as a tennis player you're in discomfort probably 90% of the time. You really are. It's a very same playing golf, right? You get that one good shot, but the rest of the time you're like, whoa, what have I done there? Why am I playing at that? And the mind plays tricks on us. I think in terms of the mental health piece, which, as you can imagine, we've dealt with a lot of young people over the last 15 years, and a lot of staff, and a lot of, it's intense. The tennis world is intense. The academy's intense. I love it to bits, but it is intense, and it's quite relentless, and it's, week after week and weekends, and there's, and actually sometimes that habit forming obsessiveness can actually send someone into some challenging mental health stages, because they almost become too obsessed with it, and that's maybe masking them dealing with something else, another part of their life. So the example that we try and use at the academy on that is around actually a glass of water. All of us have these things that when you're adding into your world, you're filling up your glass of water, and at some point it starts to overflow. And that's when you have an overwhelming feeling, and that's when we can start going down some dangerous places. So we would then strongly advise having things in place that are getting rid of the water. That might be going to the cinema with your friends, that might be going to Bahili Mon on a Sunday afternoon, that might be, we'll run an event at the academy where things are a bit more fun. That might just be a conversation with your coach. Rather than hitting tennis balls, we're just going to talk about how you're feeling. Or I try not to have the players go longer than 6 weeks without seeing their parents. If that's their parents coming to them, or them going to their parents. It's putting all of these different things in place to make sure that you've got strong pillars in place that take care of that as well. But it's right. It's good that we're talking about it more now, because when I was a junior, I was just laughed at. Do you know what I mean? And there was times I'd be crying myself to sleep. Because it's tough. I'm away. I'm in some random country away from my parents. I've got no phone. I've got no this. I've lost the tennis match. My mates are winning. I feel like the coach doesn't like me for whatever reason. Whatever, the girl who I'm trying to speak to won't get back to me, and you're dealing with it. So I think having now the forum to be able to talk more, and we'll have certain, if it's a girl, we'll make sure that there's a female within the academy that is there as a bit of an safeguarding officer, but also someone who they can go and talk to. But there is many pieces to think about, because it can be very overwhelming. Life can, but certainly it can if you're trying to achieve something at quite a high level. You almost have more red flags, I think, alongside that way. It's actually, talk about rugby, Johnny Wilkinson, who was my big rugby hero. Johnny's talked a lot about this. His obsessive nature actually led him to some really dark places. Where he almost couldn't function outside of practicing his penalty kicks.
Now, goals.
But it won England a World Cup.
But it could have done him in,
Yeah, because it doesn't always. And I learned this lesson. I've been lucky as a coach to work with some very high-level tennis players and be involved in a lot of very big matches on big stages. And it was the first time I was kind of involved that a player from the academy made the quarterfinals at Wimbledon out of the blue. And that evening when he lost, I thought, well, this is going to be a big celebration and he's made it. It's now life becomes good. And he was a bit down and depressed at the meal, and he was trying to book flights to go to America the next day for the next tournament, and life was going on, and the end bit
didn't register.
It often doesn't, which is why, and it's that cheesy saying, but the journey is the important bit, and that's the bit that we're constantly trying to drip feed into our players. It's about day in, day out enjoyment, but also trying to get better. The other stuff's kind of a byproduct. It's not like you find the end of the rainbow, you win a tournament, and now life just changes for you. And I think people that live like that have to be a little bit careful. But I think that's how a lot of sports people probably perceive success. Which is a whole other topic, really.
Sorry for the short interruption. Here's my tip for the day. If you're going to look for a property in Sotogrande, I recommend you look for an agent who has the experience and the time in the market. Someone who understands the geography, someone who understands the process, someone who understands the different innuendos that exist in Sotogrande. It is very important that you get personal advice from someone who is in the know of how things work in this market, Sotogrande. Thank you. Where do the students stay? Are they all in the boarding school? I mean, the 12 might be. Do you have accommodation for them?
So the majority actually here with families.
Okay, so mum and dad come and live here.
If I had a penny for every house that we've rented and sold over the last 15 years, I'd be a rich man, but I kind of missed that boat. I missed that boat 15 years ago, but so many families that have relocated here. Certainly since COVID times, which I think we've obviously seen in Sotogrande as well. The remote working space is so much more alive now, so why wouldn't you live in a beautiful place like this? Why not? So there's certainly been a big trend that way. We then have some of them in the boarding house with the international school as well. And then we do have a few host families in the area that we've worked with for a long time now. Where there is some players that are in with the host families as well, and who are very much part of the Sotogrande community. We've got a couple of Spanish families, a couple of English-speaking families. Some people want their kid to come and also be involved and spend most of their time in a Spanish-speaking family, and get engrossed in that world. So that works nicely. So there's a few different options, but I would say the main one is people come to this beautiful place and stay here. And once they've come and visited us, because they don't just turn up and live here, they come and see us for a week or two, and you can often see the parents going, right, how do I get out of Bradford? How am I going to have this conversation with my boss to persuade my boss that I'm going to work remotely from Sotogrande? That's one thing I'm very proud of the last 15 years of how many people we've introduced to this amazing place, and we have I've talked about it, we had 40, 50 players who are here year round, but we have a further 350, 400 families that come here to visit us and do a week or 2 weeks to access the area as well a year. So there's many people that we've kind of opened their eyes to Sotogrande.
When you put yourself up against other academies, I mean, what stands out? English, because think of Spain, you think of a Spanish academy rather than an English academy or English speaking, because presumably you are primarily English speaking. What is it that how do you advertise yourself? How do people end up finding you? I mean, you've got a website which is very complete.
Yeah, we do. Word of mouth will always be the biggest.
Yeah. Where did that person come from? Where do they train? Where do they?
Yeah, players want to be where other players are.
Yeah.
And then players want to be where coaches maybe are.
Yeah.
And then to be honest, last on the list is facility.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, so it's. I don't like to talk about other academies. I just don't. I like to. My podcast is called Control the Controllables, and it's kind of something I try and live my whole life with. It's like, well, what can we control? We can control us. Yeah. What I know our strengths are. Our strengths are very much about our environment. Our strengths are. I wrote 2 words down when I set the academy up, 16 years ago, and it was "we care." Mm-hmm. And that's always been at the heart of what we do. That I only take on coaches, and coaches only last in our environment if they care. If they're in it for the wrong reason, it shows very quickly. We care about, and then the next 3 lines, we care about the player's welfare, we care about the player's development, and we care about the player's pathway, which is where the purpose comes from. Having a plan. So that's very much in line with what we do. We are a personalized tennis academy. We're not, and I feel lucky in lots of ways on that even though it was a decision, but maybe lucky that I don't have a big facility, because if you've got a big facility, you try to fill it. Yeah. Yeah. And then you get
a big facility, you're paying bucks to rent it or whatever, and you have to fill it.
And you get in a very transactional mindset.
It becomes a business that you have to.
Absolutely. And I've never viewed SotoTennis Academy as a business.
Right.
I've had people that have got involved a bit in the academy that have, and that's never quite worked for me. Yeah. It's like, if people want to come, they'll come. And we do have, let's say, the tennis market equity. When I started it off as Dan Kiernan, whoever the hell that is, we probably had 0.0001% of market equity and brand equity in the tennis industry. Maybe we're at 5-6% now, through having players win Grand Slams, through the podcast that's listened to in 150 countries, through various things. But we're still very much, there's probably 95% of the industry doesn't know SotoTennis Academy. Yeah. So we have a very organic way that we do our social media, all of these things, and just bit by bit, I guess more and more people get to know us, and that organic way suits me down to the ground, really. That's the way I want it to continue.
It's a brand, that's where you build a brand, because you can't. I mean, Coca-Cola took a long time. Yeah. It did, and it'll never fall over, because it has that deep roots. It's people know what it means, what it stands for, and how it's been developed. It's quite a thing, building a brand. And
we are healthier than Coca-Cola, by the way.
I hope so. even the ones without sugar. Just thinking of the future, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In Sotogrande?
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years is a long time, but it's also a short time, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I certainly see doing what we're doing. I think the academy's not going anywhere. The academy's got strong roots in place. We're very, very clear on who we are, what we do. I believe in the current climate that people will continue coming. If there's another COVID that appears, then there's certain things that could be out of our control. That, of course, the way that this crazy world works, that obviously people stop spending their money on tennis. Or I don't even think it's tennis for me. It's more education, actually, which is why I believe we're in a position of strength in that regards, because people always want their kids to have the best education. You know, they want to be around people that care about them, people that are going to nurture them, you know, and that's very much at the heart of what we do. So I see that continuing. I do enjoy traveling with players and having the opportunity to be working at a higher level of the game. You know, it's very challenging to be at that kind of elite level. But it's something that certainly I feel like this is my stage in my life where I can have enough experience that there's maybe some wisdom that's coming through. Yeah. But I'm also young enough that I'm not just getting knackered all the time, you know. So
like me.
So I'm kind of in this sort of like little area. Yeah. The podcast I absolutely love doing. Cool. It's led to me doing some commentary for BBC and a few different things. So I'd certainly like to think I'd maybe do a little bit more of that. As you can tell from today, I quite like talking and interacting with people. Good. So having the opportunity to do that about the sport I love. But absolutely, I see it very much in the heart of Sotogrande and you know, having as much opportunity as we do to live in this beautiful place. Yeah.
You said in 5 years you're going to be here. My last question was, you know, what does Sotogrande mean to you now? And the wording in the stadium is home, probably. And is there anything else I can add to that in terms of what Sotogrande means to you?
No, it is home brings it together. Genuinely, it is home. You know, I always felt like a little bit of a nomad. Yeah. You know, in terms of leaving home. Newcastle's still home for me as well, and I feel lucky to have those two places. It's the place where my kids have been brought up. Mm-hmm. You know, and when I think about all of our friends and our community we have, because I think one of the things about Sotogrande is there's lots of little communities within the community.
Of course, it's getting big enough to be able to have that.
Yes, absolutely, and that's something that, you know, we have so many special friends here. You know, we really do, and you know, friends who, you know, when illnesses have happened, which they have over the years, they're more than friends. They're like family. They've come and I think because so many of us are expats here, and so many of us don't have our families here. Yeah. That's blown me away actually the last couple of years on how strongly people come together when needed. Yeah. And we've got 2 or 3 quite strong examples either within our family or within friends of ours that have had some quite difficult illnesses to deal with. And the upset that I've had from that's not necessarily been about the illnesses, even though that's been very difficult. It's been about just, I can't believe how amazing people are. Yeah. To the way that they've come around. So, friends, family, home, it'll always be whatever the future holds for us. You know, this is one of these places that it'll always be strongly in our hearts. And I think we see that as well a lot, right? I see people every summer where I think, you left 3 years ago. Like, well, he can't get rid of you. You know, it kind of just keeps bringing you back in. And that's something, ironically, back in 2010 was my concern. I felt maybe Sotogrande didn't have enough soul for me. Right. And actually now that we've been in it,
I think it's reached a tipping point. You know, the secret is out. I keep saying, and I see that with my clientele coming in. You know, it's no longer this place that's not Marbella. It's almost like an extension of the Costa, and people see it as a place that, you know, you can go and live. And if you want the bling, you can go for the blingy part. And if you want the nightclub, you can go up the road, and come back home here. And you know, it's what it is, and the values that exist in Sotogrande are still here, almost from the original day. I mean, I had Paula Zubel on last Sunday, and you know, her great uncle, great auntie, Mrs. Zubel, who was Mickin's wife. You know, those values that they had right at the beginning seem to stay here. You know, it's family orientated. Yeah. It's you know, we all know each other. We entertain each other in the homes. Yeah. We protect each other as well. And you know, that I see. And as an expat that I have been all my life. I mean, I've lived in Colombia and Africa and New Zealand, all over the Middle East. That's what you do, and you find that usually as a new person at the school where your kids go, because those you see other parents, and that's how you get going. You know, in Nairobi, you know, our friends were around the school friends that my daughters had, and that's what I see. Yeah. Dan, one last one. Is there a question you wished I'd asked you but I haven't?
Which football team do I support?
We don't talk football here. Tennis or rugby?
No, I don't think so. I think all I'd like to say is I watched a couple of these before I came on.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, and I'm just massively impressed. And I think this is something that, again, I think the community can really get round.
Yeah.
You know, I think it is something that brings alive Sotogrande as well. So a big well done and thank you for what you're doing, because I really do, you know, think there's a hell of a lot of value for lots of people that are going to have the opportunity to listen. And I sat and listened to 2 or 3, and you know, certainly he said Paula from
Paula,
that's one I'd love to listen to. You know, I'd love to get to the roots of you know, some of the values of Sotogrande and these things. So
I mean, she's the owner of Cancha Dos. I mean, the fire, it all, it was awful.
So so I'll definitely be going back and listening to that, and just big well done and thank you for what you're bringing together as well.
Dan, thank you very much. Lovely.
Thank you.
Well, everyone, hope you enjoyed this episode of Charlie in Sotogrande. See you next time.